Jack had finally reached his limit. Far too many strangers had been wandering onto his property as if the clearly marked boundaries didn't exist. Installing a simple warning sign seemed like the easiest way to solve the problem. He never imagined that such a small decision would ignite a neighborhood-wide dispute. The sign wasn't aggressive or intimidating. It simply informed people that the property was privately owned and protected under the law. Jack stepped back with a satisfied smile, convinced the issue had finally been resolved. Unfortunately, someone else had already taken notice. Linda Brooks, the president of the HOA, treated every change in the neighborhood as if it required her approval. The new sign instantly became her latest obsession. Without bothering to introduce herself, Linda marched over and demanded that Jack remove the sign immediately. She claimed it violated the HOA's community standards. Jack calmly explained that the land belonged to him. Linda insisted the HOA had authority over everything inside the neighborhood. Remaining polite, Jack asked her to point out the specific rule that gave the HOA control over his privately owned property. She couldn't produce a single one. Growing frustrated that Jack refused to give in, Linda pulled out her phone and made a call. With complete confidence, she reported that a trespasser was refusing to leave HOA property. Jack simply stayed where he was and waited. A few minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Linda hurried toward them, eager to tell her side of the story before anyone else could speak. Jack remained standing exactly where he had been the entire time, on his own property. Rather than jumping conclusions, the officers asked both sides to explain what had happened. Jack calmly described the property boundaries and explained why he had installed the warning sign. The conversation stayed respectful and professional. Before making any decisions, the officers checked the available property records. As they reviewed the information, the facts began telling a very different story than the one Linda had described. The officers confirmed that the warning sign was positioned entirely within Jack's property lines. No trespassing had occurred. Instead, attention quickly shifted toward the HOA's inaccurate complaint. Linda refused to accept the officers' findings. She insisted the HOA controlled the entire entrance to the neighborhood. The officers patiently explained that private ownership always took priority. The official property map clearly showed the sign sitting well inside Jack's land. Every measurement matched the county's recorded survey. There was no uncertainty left to argue about. Still determined to prove she was right, Linda began flipping through every page of the HOA handbook. She couldn't locate a single rule that allowed the HOA to remove a legally placed sign from private property. The growing crowd of neighbors quickly realized this was no longer just about community regulations. It had become a lesson about private property rights. Many residents started questioning the HOA's behavior. After confirming all the facts, the officers thanked Jack for his cooperation. He had done absolutely nothing wrong. The complaint simply didn't match the evidence. Jack then showed the officers the original survey markers that had been installed years earlier. Every marker lined up perfectly with the official county records. The evidence left almost no room for disagreement. The officers reminded Linda that HOA rules could never override legally recorded property ownership. If she wished to challenge the boundaries, she would have to do so through the proper legal process, not by filing false complaints. With the facts fully established, the situation finally began to settle down. The officers prepared to leave after resolving the misunderstanding. Jack's warning sign remained exactly where it belonged, although the confrontation had ended. It was obvious Linda wasn't pleased with the outcome. The confidence she had shown earlier had completely faded. Meanwhile, the neighbors had witnessed the truth with their own eyes. As the patrol car slowly drove away, peace returned to the neighborhood once again. Jack glanced at the sign one last time and smiled. Defending his property had been worth every moment. The following morning, Jack expected everything to return to normal. His warning sign still stood exactly where it belonged. But on the opposite side of the street, someone was already preparing for another confrontation. Linda gathered several members of the HOA board, convinced they would back her position. She insisted the responding officers had misunderstood what had happened. With their confidence restored, the group walked together toward Jack's property, fully expecting to settle the matter themselves. The board immediately demanded that Jack take the sign down without delay. Jack listened respectfully, then asked one simple question. Can you show me the legal authority that gives you the right to remove it? The board members began searching through their documents. They found landscaping regulations, architectural requirements, and community appearance guidelines, but nowhere could they find a rule granting the HOA authority over Jack's privately owned land. News of the confrontation spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. More and more residents stopped what they were doing to watch. Many had started wondering whether the HOA had been exceeding its authority for years without anyone questioning it. Jack calmly presented the certified land survey he had received when he purchased property. Every property line matched the official county records exactly. The board members carefully studied the documents in silence. For the first time, even several members of the HOA board appeared uncertain. They could see that Linda's accusations simply did not match the documented evidence. The confidence they had shown earlier slowly gave way to doubt. An elderly neighbor then stepped forward carrying paperwork from the neighborhood's original development. Those records also confirmed that Jack was the rightful owner of the land. The conversation immediately became much quieter. After reviewing all of the available evidence, the board members realized there was no factual basis to support Linda's claims. One by one, several of them quietly stepped away from the disagreement. Jack never needed to raise his voice or argue. The HOA board ended the meeting without taking any action. Jack's warning sign remained exactly where it had been from the very beginning, securely on his own property. Although the disagreement had not been completely resolved, the truth had become increasingly difficult for anyone to deny. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more HOA stories every week. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you.